Hi there, it's Maigan Lynn here from MaiganLynnArt.com, and I'm here today, this evening, with another tutorial for you. This is kind of an off-the-cuff kind of tutorial, last minute, not last minute like I've been planning this, but we're going to be selling our house pretty soon, and as an artist, some of the things that you do when you sell a house is stage it, and there's a few places that I need to fill with some artwork. So this is going to be going in my front entranceway. When you come up my front entranceway, a lot of the colors are really neutral with pops of red. So I'm going to be using colors like beige and brown, as well as gray, black, white, red, and a little bit of gold. And I'll just show you the colors that I'm going to be using. This is the Artist Loft Flow Acrylic Black. That's a staple of mine. This is the Artist Loft Flow Acrylic in White, another staple. And this one, the Daler Rowney Simply Acrylic in Brilliant Red. I'm very particular with reds. There's only been a couple of brands that I've found that actually work really well. This is one of them that holds its red. It doesn't get too muddy. It does mix with the other colors naturally, but it doesn't get overly muddy. One of the other colors is the Liquitex Acrylic Basics. This one's in the dark umber. These ones are quite a bit thicker than a lot of the other paints, so you do have to play with this one a little bit more. One of the other colors that I'm trying is the Cashmere Tan by Acrylic. This is another one, if you've watched some of my other videos, it's called Majestic Purple. And this is the same brand. So I haven't tried this color, but the Majestic Purple is highly pigmented. It's one of my favorite colors, one of my favorite purples. So we're gonna try this one as well. And then the other color is the Sargent's Liquid Metal Gold Paint. I don't like how it looks in the container, but we're gonna make it work. We're not gonna use a lot of it, but we're gonna make it work. So how do I make my big paintings? I've done a demo before. I don't do a lot of these because I don't have a ton of space, and currently right now we're in my kitchen doing this. Usually what I do is I try and figure out about how much paint I'm going to be using first of all. My husband's more the mathematician, scientist type guy. I kind of go by the seat of my pants. Most of the paintings I do are 12 by 12. So I just kind of say, okay, well, how much paint would I need in a cup for a 12 by 12, which is probably about here. So I just kind of eyeball it and try and feel out how many cups. I'm going to fill these a little bit more. These are the pour mixing cups. If you want to learn how to do how to make your own glue all pouring medium, or how to mix your paints, I will put the links in the comments or in the description below, so you can go to the other tutorials that I have up to learn how to do those things. I'm not going to be teaching you how to do that here. I've already got my my glue all pouring medium pre-made in this fancy plastic milk jug, and I'm just going to be basically going through the steps and just showing you how I do it. Again, the way I do things is not perfect. The way I do things is not for everybody. It works for me. It seems to work for some other people. If it doesn't work for you this way, there are 1,000 million other videos out there that you can sort through as well to see what works best for you. And that's the thing as an artist, it's about trying to find where your own personal groove is at. For me, it's this. Okay, so I've already started a little bit pre-mixing some of my colors. So this is the red, and you can see how it just kind of drips right off like honey. I haven't added the silicone to this yet. This is just the paint, the glue wall, and a little bit of water. So the next one I'm gonna do is the black. And I apologize if you can't see perfectly. I have one camera and I'm one person, and I'm doing my best. Okay. So again, it's a guesstimate as to how much, you know, you might need, because I'm using, what is it, 5, 6 different colors here. So I don't want to make too much. I mean, if I didn't make too much, I can always use them in another painting, but I'm trying to, you know, approximate it as closely as possible so I can fill all of the cups. So quick rundown on what the ratio is here. For my paints, I use 2/3 paint to 1/3 of the pouring medium. I may need to add a little bit more pouring medium, but I try not to add too much right off the bat. Adding more in is easier than having to add in more paint and adjust that way. So I do my best where that's concerned. The flow acrylics aren't too difficult to work with. They're actually pretty easy to get to the consistency that you'd like. Let's see. That's actually pretty good that way. I might add just a teensy weensy bit of water. And when I say teensy weensy bit, I mean a couple drops at most. That's all you need in that much paint. That's all you need for water. And then really mix it in. Okay, now it's like honey. There we go. So I'm just putting all my pre-made paints over this way. Okay, now we'll work with the white, because those are going to be the three main colors. I don't want the beige and the brown to overpower too much, so I may not add quite as much of those as the white, the black, and the red. Okay. If you have containers with the measurements on the sides, it's a little easier. I don't actually use the measurements, which you think would be, you know, the smart thing to do, but it doesn't really matter. Some people would say it matters. I don't mind. I work better this way. It's a bit too thick. I didn't add quite enough of the pouring medium. And every paint is different. So you're gonna have to play with it differently than you would with a different paint. The makeup, the consistency, the weight, all of it, they're all different. So that's why I could never pinpoint an exact method or mixture. I go by feel. So this painting, just so you get an idea of size, it is 24 by 48 inches, and it's a substantial enough size piece that it'll go in my front entranceway, and it'll make a really nice statement when people are coming in. And that's the thing, people are coming in your home, you want what they see first off the bat to make a statement, to welcome them to your home. I don't know why we didn't do this before, probably because I put everything else first. So here we go. Now I'm going to do the Liquitex basic, the burnt umber. Oh, that's not what I want. Different. I'm going to mix quite a bit of this, but probably not as much as the black, the red, or the white. Just enough to make a decent layer in each of the 5 cups. Will mean the whole tube, and that's fine. And I know some people watch, and some people make their paints fairly thin, and they find like a lot of the excess goes over the edge. Mine, I do use a lot of paint, but a lot of the paint stays on the canvas. I mix mine thick enough so that when they're drying, they don't just rip off the edges. The other thing that people do so as not to waste, you can see, this is from St. Patrick's Day, so it's what I had laying around. But it's one of the plastic throwaway tablecloths, and once the paints drip over on the side, when they dry on the plastic, you can peel them off, and then you can use them for jewelry and all kinds of other really cool stuff. So you're not wasting as much as you would think if you use your paints efficiently in multiple ways. So you can see that, about 2/3, 1/3, and then you mix it up Again, not an exact science. This is the one that I said was really, really thick and you really got to work with it. I just stuffed my hands in it. Look at, it's like mud. See, not even close. So the Liquitex Basics, not really made specifically for easy flow. They're just they're excellent quality acrylic paints. They're just, the makeup of them is quite a bit different, and it just means you have to do more work. Usually it means I have to add more water in it and thin it down. That one was a little bit more than what I would normally put in there. Oops. So again, I'm not really going over all of the specifics, all of the details in this tutorial. I do have other tutorials if you're just stopping in or flipping through quickly just to kind of get the gist of it. I do have other tutorials that I do recommend that you check out that I'm much more thorough with, as far as the mixtures and the reactions and why things happen the way they happen. And that was one of the things, I got a lot of comments on my one tutorial stating that, you know, they were glad to have found it because they needed to understand why they were doing the things they were doing and not just following instructions A to B, which is the problem that I ran into when I was trying to learn how to do this. And that makes it a massive learning curve. Like, it's kind of unnecessarily so. So I thought I'd lay it out as specifically as I could. The only thing is, it is my personal process. It's not perfect. So, I mean, if that one doesn't work for you, at least you get the basics as to, you know, how the paint works, why the silicone is needed, why do you torch, or needed or not needed, or preference, or whatever else. So I do recommend checking those out if you're still confused as to why things are happening the way they happen. Okay, now we're gonna do the cashmere tan. And these ones are generally a little bit thinner. See, this one's already really thin, so it doesn't need much. That's actually, you know what though, mixed with the other paints, it'll be okay. That's the other thing. A lot of people try and get their consistency exactly the same, and you can do that. You can get as closely as you'd like. I like the different consistency in paint thickness because I find when it dries, you do sometimes end up with indents. I don't know, I guess some people call them cracks. They're not really cracks, they're more like valleys in your painting. Just that some parts of your paints are drying faster than others because they're thicker or they're thinner, which creates these really neat texturized indents throughout the painting. I personally prefer it. I love all the weird stuff that happens with paintings. Some people don't. Some people want everything perfect and controlled. And it's funny because normally I'm an illustrator, so I generally prefer things to be fairly precise and, you know, just so. And with these, I like to see what happens. Okay, so I'm not going to use much gold because I don't want a lot. I just want a little bit of shimmer. I don't want the gold to overpower anything. And who knows, it may not even show up very much. So one of the other things I do want to mention, we are in a move, or are going to be. My husband just completed his military training, so that means we're posted. And what that means for me is that for the next little while, probably until about September, things are going to be a little bit all over the place. So I'm not going to be able to get paintings up in my shop for sale. However, if you go through any of my YouTube demos and you see a painting that you like, feel free to contact me either through my email, Maigan_Lynn@hotmail.com, or through YouTube or whatever, and let me know, and we can work it out that way. If I don't have time or if I don't have the painting, I'll let you know. I'm very adamant about communicating properly. Whereas, especially when it's a sale or something you're interested in, I think it's very important to keep in touch with people. However, if I'm too busy, if my family is just not able, if all of our stuff is packed in that moment, it's not going to be a possibility. But if you do see something, let me know. I'll see if I have it. If I don't have it, sometimes, if time permitting, I'm able to do a more custom piece. So yeah, if you want to check out the rest of my YouTube channel for the demos, the links to my website, you can keep checking back because eventually I will be putting paintings in there as well. The link to my website is in my description, but if you just want to run there, it's www.maiganlynnart.com. So now that I've sufficiently plugged myself, okay, so I'm going to figure out, okay, these two are generally base colors, black and white generally base colors. So I don't add any silicone to the base colors. And quick rundown as to why I do that. Silicone reacts with water. And if you put silicone in all of the other paints and you don't put any in the base paints, then you have the potential for a stronger reaction where cells are concerned. The silicone reacts with the water in the paint. So if there's silicone in all of them, you'll still get cells, but I find you need to be able to react between the paints as well. So not putting it in the bases, I find, really helps. And the bases are the ones that you start at the bottom with. So you start here, you put your black or your white, and then you layer all your other colors. And then when you flip them upside down, the base is generally a heavy paint. So as it's going through the rest of as it's falling through the rest of the paints, the water in the base paints will react with the silicone in the rest of the paints, which causes cells. And that's as scientific as I'm getting. Okay, so this is probably, normally I would only add about 2 to 3 drops of silicone per container of paint. However, I'm gonna probably add maybe 6 because we've doubled to tripled the amount that I would normally use. 3, 4, 5, 6. And honestly, that's all you need. Any more than that and it's not gonna react as well. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I'm not mixing them in yet, you'll notice that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops, that one had a few more. And the gold. Metallics are interesting to work with, so it's going to be 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm not adding too much black per cup because I don't want it to overpower any other color, which on a big painting like this is going to be harder to do with any one color unless you use a ton of it. But I want to give the other colors a chance too. Okay, so the next, let's see, maybe, I had this all played out, but I'm switching my mind on the fly. Okay, let's do the red. Okay, so we know we put the silicone in the red. So all you want to do is just give it a little mix. Don't do anything vigorously, just enough to kind of pull it through the paint a little bit, because you don't want it to mix in and become part of the paint. So I'm going to put a substantial amount of red in each. I don't know how this is going to work out. I have an idea in my brain and I hope it works out that way, but I mean, they're all kind of, you can control so much, but you never know exactly how it's going to happen. And I mean, after you've experienced this a little bit, and you've played with enough paint and paintings and got the hang of it, it becomes easier to know what to expect, but there's still an element of surprise, which I love. If you're doing this and you get paint on your canvas, it doesn't matter because it's all going to get covered anyways. Okay. Put that up there. Okay, now I'm going to add in some white just to kind of offset the black and the red a little. And again, the white doesn't have any silicone in it, so it'll react with the silicone that's in the red, and it'll react with the silicone that's in the colors that are going on top of it. And when I did a demo a while back, it was actually a commission, two-piece commission for a friend of mine. And there was two giant paintings. And I did those ones in the black, red, and white. And you can see they turned out really nice because the black and the white naturally make a little bit of gray. And the problem was I didn't want the red to become too pink for his paintings. So that was a challenge in finding a proper red that would stay true to its color and not its color and its properties and not get too muddy. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now, again, these ones have the silicone, so we're just going to give it a small mix. Okay. Add in the lighter color. This one, the cashmere tan. We'll see how this goes. And these colors may not be for everybody. You can do this with whatever colors you want. This is just my main entrance / living area. These are the more neutral tones. Or the color scheme, and I wanted to pull in most of the colors if I could, so no, that's not what I wanted. I want to use the dark umber. This is the one, I don't know, this one's really thick. I may add a little bit more water to this one because it's not going to play nice with the others, I don't think, if I don't. And because I added the silicone in there, it's still in there, it's just because I have to mix the water in. It may not react as well as before, but that's fine. So again, these are the Liquitex basic paints, which are fine. They are wonderful. Their pigments and quality are fantastic, but for pours, you can see they come out a little bit like mousse, no matter what you do. Flipping these is going to be really interesting. This is the first time I ever had to do this. I was terrified because I had only ever flipped the cups while they were attached to the painting, and the first time that I had to just openly flip it with the help of gravity and momentum, it scared me. I thought I was going to have a giant mess and I was going to throw my paints all over everything except for the canvas, but that didn't happen. I got actually really good at it. It's one of my favorite things. Now we're going to try a little bit of the gold. Again, it has some silicone in it, so we'll just give it a quick mix around. Let's see what we can do with this gold. So this is actually, the quantity is going to work out really, really well because I have more than enough, or I should have more than enough for each section of paint that the cup was intended to cover. I think I have a little bit more black, so I'm going to use that. finish off. So you get a better idea of how much paint you'll need the more often you do it. I would always suggest, I mean, you could always dive in head first, but the best would probably be to, you know, play around with smaller paintings, 12 by 12 and under, until you get the hang of it if you're just starting out, and then gradually move up, because as you do, you'll get the feel as to how much paint exactly you need. I know there's some artists out there that have done approximations, but it always depends on the thickness of your paints, what you're using as far as your pouring medium, because there's a wide variety. I make my own because it's actually my personal preference. I like the consistency of the glue all pouring medium. So the mixtures and measurements, they can give you an approximate, which will help you, you know, as a starting point. But you are going to have to play with it still, just because your mixture is going to be different than theirs. Your consistency is going to be different. You may need more paint, you may need less. Okay, so here we go. So it's still a little terrifying, but it's also now exhilarating. So, one. And try not to like slam it into your canvas to the point where you're afraid that you're either going to rip it off the frame or you're going to bust through it, because that's not good. 2. Oh, we've got some suction. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so I have some paint on my hands right now, and I'm still going to put gloves on because it's about to get really messy. A little bit messy is fine. I'm not going to ruin everything I touch, you know, by getting a little bit of paint on me, but when you lift the cups, the potential for hazard is great. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Gloves. These gloves, I love them. You can reuse them if you rinse them right away and let them out to dry. They come in a box of like 500 or something, and they're not very expensive, so I really do. And they fit. Like, I don't have very big hands, and these actually fit me. Okay, so we are going to start lifting. We'll start with this one. And voila! Oh my goodness, look at that. And the petals do look different from the time you pour them to the time that everything is settled. But it gives you an idea as to color. Oh, this is pretty with the gold. See what I mean? You didn't need a lot of gold for this because metallics can be a little bit powerful. So that's one. Okay. And this one's suction, so it might take a minute. Oh, there we go. And I like to scrape the cups because there is a ton of paint still in there. Whew, goodness. And 3. There's so much paint. There's not quite as much red as I was hoping for, which may mean going back and adding in afterwards, but that's fine because these colors, the base colors are actually really pretty. And the last one. So I'm just gonna put those up there. And if you can wear a painting smock, I recommend doing it because you're gonna get messy. I wear painting clothes, I wear a painting smock, and I make sure that any surface around me is able to be cleared of paint afterwards if it dries or whatever else. Okay, so this is the fun part, the torch. I have 2 torches. My other one, my first one I got for my birthday last year from my husband. One of the best birthday gifts ever. Oh. There we go. Okay, so we torch because the heat helps react with the silicone and create cells, as well as see all of that popping that's happening there. Some of them are air bubbles. So any air that gets caught underneath the paint. The heat helps bring it out. And it's awesome playing with fire. So I said in my previous tutorial, I torch probably way more than most artists do. I love the busy look, so this doesn't bother me at all. Just keep your torch moving as best you can, because if you stay in one spot too long, you can burn your paints. And while sometimes that look is pretty cool, it's not always what you're intending. It also stinks, and sometimes it can actually bubble, which you don't want. There's so many cells already, but you can see all of the bubbles in here, which once the paint's a little bit thinner, once I move it, it'll be easier to access the bubbles that are currently stuck. So I'm not freaking out that I don't have all the bubbles popped right now. And I won't freak out if I miss any period, because as they dry, and they pop as they dry, they create these little tiny pinholes, which I also like. I like the funky stuff. I like the texture and the different designs, the things you weren't expecting, but turns out adds a really neat element to your painting. Okay, so we're gonna be done with that for now. But now it's time to tilt and see what happens. So if this is your first time ever doing this, if you're in an area where you have anything valuable, move it, because you're about to ruin it. The paint tends to go everywhere, and I try and cover every edge of my canvas, so this is going to be interesting because this canvas is actually pretty heavy, and this is going to take a bit of work. Cross your fingers for me that I don't lose my supports. Okay, I'm gonna squeeze this end. Sorry. You can see the cells spreading out. Yeah, this is gonna be really cool. So I'm gonna have to hit every angle of this painting to try and get it to move. I'm gonna cover this far corner. And again, it's gonna take some balancing and some strength because this is heavy. Now we're gonna tip it up the other way. You're not gonna be able to see it for a second. That's okay. Okay, I keep putting it down just to make sure that it still has supports underneath of it, and that when I lift it, it's going to balance okay. And this whole end of the canvas still needs covering, so I'm going to tilt it way up and see if that helps. Okay. Try and tilt it to that back corner. See if we can cover a little bit back there. Okay. It may just be easier just to do a small mix of new paint, or layer in some of the paints that I still have in the cups. You know, this is actually it's working out kind of like a swipe. And if I don't cover all of the edges, then I will just paint them. But as long as the top of the canvas is covered, then it should be okay. Okay. Now, it looked like we had some lumps, so I'm gonna see. drips all the way across. This is fine because we're still going to torch and we can still play with it a little bit. It's very hard to actually ruin these paintings. So I'm going to take off my gloves at this point because now I'm going to torch for the second time. But there's still one more little blip in here. There, should be better. All right. Let's see how many bubbles we can pop here. Now the bigger paintings are going to take a little bit more work because it's just naturally a bigger surface area, more bubbles, more paint. Tiny, tiny bubbles that you may not even be able to see on the camera. I can see them. Look at all these ones in here. Now I think because they look like lumps, but I think it was just the, it might have been the metallic paint that was thicker in some places. So I think when this dries, we're going to get quite a lot of texture. You can see little spots like these that are starting to come up with little clusters of cells, which is in part thanks to the torching. You can see there is a little bit of pink in here, which is fine. I actually don't mind the pink because it offsets the beige and the red nicely. Okay, and a lot of these are going to come up as little pinhole spots as it dries. So that's it. Once this dries, I'm going to go back and paint the edges. The most important things to remember is to create enough paint right off the bat. Try and lay it out visually. Like if you start off small, start off with a 12 by 12. Gauge how much paint you generally use for a 12 by 12. Like I said, in a cup this size for a 12 by 12 painting, I'd probably use 2/3, 3/4 of this cup full of paint, and then there's usually an excess as well. So considering, you know, this is probably about a 12 by 12 space, this is probably a 12 by 12 space, generally I'd use 2, so instead of using 2 separate cups, I just filled the 1 cup more and just kind of tilted and played with it. So I only had to use 5 cups instead of 12 or 10. So make sure you get the right amount of paints. Again, start small just so you can get a decent gauge. Pick out your colors beforehand. That's always super important. I normally in most of my videos I don't even show you the mixing of my paints just because it's so tedious. It's probably one of the bigger parts of this whole process. It takes the most time, and it's important, but it's not necessarily fun to watch. So make sure you have all of your paints done beforehand before you start pouring them into the cup. It's just easier to organize. It's easier just to grab them and layer them as you go and work with your creative process as opposed to having to continuously stall between mixing paints or whatever. Always have your water, everything that you need on hand before you start so you're not running all over the place. Not guaranteed right now just because we're in the process of moving, but I would like to do tutorials as they come up, as I see them relevant. If you have an idea of a tutorial that you'd like me to show you, you know, how I do a specific process, or one of them that I want to be doing next is how I gloss my finished pieces, how I prepare them for the glossing and how I actually do the gloss. So that should be coming up. If there's anything else that you'd like to see, please leave a comment and let me know. That way I can, you know, do the things that are important to you, things that maybe I wasn't thinking of, things that you might be interested in, or if you just have a general question and I have so many questions I can't just continuously type, I will do a video. Let me know if you liked the tutorial, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Any support that you can give me is always greatly appreciated. If you leave a comment, I do try and get back to all of them. If I miss you, it's probably a technical error. My husband laughs at me saying that, you know, at almost 35 years old, technology has surpassed me, and he's not wrong. So if I don't get back to you, usually my editing team tries to, or alerts me to the fact that I've missed something, and I try and catch up. So go back, check out my other videos, check out my other tutorials. If this is something that you really want to do it. Just dive in, get your supplies, and just do it, because it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of people coming to me saying, oh, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that, and I get that. But this is definitely something that you're going to want to try at least once. I recently did a paint night with a couple of my girlfriends, and I taught them how to do this, and they were surprised as to what it actually involved. But they had a lot of fun, and the paintings that they made were really fantastic. So I would do that. Even just get together with your friends, have a fun, goofy paint night, make a massive mess, and enjoy yourselves, because this is definitely worth trying at least once. And I just want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.